Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Psychology of Samadhi based on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras and 45 years personal practice. So this is from Swami Tadatmananda. I thought this was pretty interesting. It's a relative recent one, so let's go ahead and give this video a shot. There's I think 4 of them, and I think as he comes up I will do this video. So let's go get started.
I'd like to share with you some insights and observations from my practice of meditation over the past 45 years. I'll describe various techniques I've used and the experiences they produced. I'll also explain important spiritual teachings that helped me understand and grow from those experiences. And I'll discuss some of the mistakes I've made to save you the trouble of repeating them. I hope all this will help you deepen your own practice of meditation. My practice began in the late 1970s, after I moved to sunny California to enjoy the climate and begin my career in the new field of microcomputers. Even though I enjoyed my work and the laid-back lifestyle, I felt quite strongly that something important was missing in my life. As a result, I found myself attracted to the practice of yoga and meditation. I attended lectures by Swami Satchidananda, who became famous for addressing hundreds of thousands of music lovers at the historic Woodstock Music Festival. I practiced Hatha Yoga with his students. I chanted Om Namah Shivaya with followers of Swami Muktananda. And I began to meditate every day, often while sitting on a high bluff overlooking the Pacific Ocean as the sun set. My practice became much more focused in 1981 after I met Swami Dayananda, a traditional teacher of Advaita Vedanta, who later became my guru. Through all those practices, I was seeking inner peace and perfect contentment. The only time I truly felt fulfilled was during meditation. The simple techniques I had learned back then worked surprisingly well. Yet, as soon as I stopped meditating, those feelings of peace and contentment quickly faded away. Swami Dayananda taught that lasting fulfillment was indeed possible through a process of spiritual growth. So when he started a 3-year-long residential course in Vedanta, meditation, and Sanskrit, I moved to his ashram.
Now this makes me wonder, I say I'm content, but do I really know if I am content or not? I guess the question that popped out of my mind is, do you know what you experience? Seems like it's deep and philosophical, but I don't know. Kind of like, if you feel happy, but you don't know what happiness is, do you know that you're happy? If you don't know what something is, and you experience something, can you associate that with what it is? But if you don't know what it is, then how do you know that is what it is? Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I'm just merely for me to say that I say that I'm content. I think that I am. But do I know what content is? Someone can say this is contentment. I guess we have to define what content is to know if we're like that. So that's the reason why I say I am content. But perhaps maybe there is a little bit of a different content, perhaps. Maybe meditate. Maybe that's only through meditation. Perhaps.
Years later, he ordained me as a sannyasi, a Hindu monk, and the rest, as they say, is history. I'm sharing this background with you to make an important point. And that point is, the results of spiritual practice depend on your intention, on your motive or goal. Let me explain. Today, yoga and meditation are quite popular in mainstream culture. Most yoga studios cater to people who want to improve their physical and mental well-being. And that's tremendously helpful, especially for those who struggle with the stress and demands of modern urban life. Yet, the practices performed in those studios originated from the rishis, the self-realized sages who lived in ancient India, sages who never imagined that their practices would one day be used for physical exercise and stress management. They had a far loftier goal in mind: enlightenment, liberation, spiritual realization. To use their practices merely for exercise and relaxation is like using a powerful supercomputer to add 2 plus 2. Yet, that is indeed the intent of most modern practitioners.
Can we not say that this is perhaps at least the first steps towards it? I mean, stress management and getting in physical shape is hopefully part of the practice. But I think what he's saying is that that's all it's used for. And like he just made the analogy, it's like using a supercomputer to add plus 2 plus 2, 2 plus 2, plus 2 plus 2. But yes, I mean, I'll say this at the very least. It's a step in the right direction. I guess, I wish people would understand that there's perhaps more to it than just that. And maybe, if people just want this first level 1 yoga, then that's fine. That's great. At least, they're not saying, at least they understand that there's more to it, and perhaps this is all they want. You can't force people into things, but at least let them know that there's more to it than just exercising and stress management.
There's a related issue here. I began meditating during the waning years of the free-spirited hippie movement in this country. At that time, many young people were drawn to yoga and meditation as a way to enjoy ecstatic, psychedelic experiences without using hallucinogenic drugs. They wanted to get high on God, as they said. Even today, the intent of many dedicated practitioners is to seek wonderful spiritual experiences like that. But seeking such experiences in meditation has a lot in common with seeking wonderful experiences on a tropical beach, or a fancy restaurant, or in a movie theater.
Yeah, I was just thinking I was going to pause it there, but I figured I'd let him finish because I already passed up the point in a way. But yeah, it's like if your intent is to your intent is to get enjoyment out of something, I think you're doing it wrong. It's really weird to say that, if you want contentment, you want bliss, do this. But then when you're seeking that, you'll never find it. Well, I won't say you'll never find it, but you make it more difficult on yourself because, again, to go back with Acharya Prashant's one person in one of the videos, this guy has a good paying job. He's stressing out because he hasn't become enlightened yet. And that's the way I seemed like the person was presenting himself like I'm not enlightened yet. I need to be enlightened. I need to hurry up. I'm running out of time. It's like, yeah, you worrying about it you're never going to get there. Obviously you should start, but you shouldn't be stressing about it, and you should take your time. Guess what? If you believe in reincarnation, if you don't get in this lifetime, you have next lifetime to try again. But to stress, I don't think it's going to help you there. And this is kind of like, in this situation, it's not stress trying to get there. It's more along the lines seeking pleasure, getting away from suffering, but in the wrong way, I think.
All these experiences are fleeting. They all fade away without leading to lasting contentment and inner peace. For the ancient rishis, the practice of yoga and meditation was not for health and well-being or for special meditative experiences. Those practices were considered essential elements of a process of spiritual growth, a process that culminates in the realization of your true self, Atma, the so-called inner divinity that is actually pure consciousness, unborn, uncreated, limitless, and utterly untouched by worldly suffering. This personal discovery of your true nature, Atma, results in inner peace and contentment that never fades away. This discovery is commonly called enlightenment, which is the ultimate goal of the practice of yoga and meditation. More than 1,500 years ago, the great Rishi Patanjali composed the famous Yoga Sutras. Even today, this Sanskrit text is considered the source scripture and foundation for the practice of yogic meditation. I've called it yogic meditation here to distinguish it from other practices like mindfulness meditation or the visualization techniques used in Tibetan Buddhism and elsewhere. As you might know, sutras are short aphorisms used to present spiritual wisdom in a very concise and systematic manner. Patanjali's text consists of just 196 sutras. You might be surprised that his sutras say almost nothing about the postures or asanas that are the focus of contemporary yoga practice. As we'll see shortly, the sutras describe an exceptionally powerful system of meditation. Before we continue, it's important to address a widespread misunderstanding about the word yoga. Yoga is often said to mean union, based on its relationship with the English word yoke.
Interesting. Sadhguru says it's understood as union as well.
Obviously, Patanjali didn't know the word yoke, but he did know the three verbal roots from which the word yoga can be derived: to join or unite, to meditate, and to restrain or control. In the second sutra of his text, Patanjali himself defines yoga as chitta vritti nirodha, the restraint of mental activities. Here, he uses the word yoga to mean both meditation and restraint. He clearly didn't use it here to mean to join or unite. Why not? Because Patanjali knew that your true self, Atma, is already divine, already unborn and uncreated, already limitless, and already united with the highest reality, Brahman. So, according to Patanjali, the purpose of yoga is not to become united with something separate from you, but instead to lead you to discover and abide in your true divine nature, Atma.
I wonder if Sadhguru just says that to, it makes a bit more sense perhaps to Westerners to say unite. And I guess perhaps I could understand it in such a way as to, how do I say? I was trying to think like unite the mind back to what your original not your original thought, but to unite your Atman with Brahman, even though it was never separate in the first place, but because there's this duality that we see, is to unite those two, to not be separate anymore, to separate duality to non-duality. But I don't know. I know Sadhguru unite, and perhaps that's just an easier term for Westerners to understand.
That's exactly what he says in the following sutra. Tada, then, when the activities of your mind have been restrained, that is, when you attain the state of Samadhi, avasthanam, you then abide, swarupe, in your true nature, drashtuhu, as pure, limitless consciousness, as the true self, Atma. Patanjali calls that state kaivalya, which literally means onlyness. In the state of Samadhi, only your true divine nature remains, nothing else.
Real quick, I'm wondering, is the word divine used in this? Or is this again another thing to make it easier to understand to Westerners or English speakers? Is divine actually used? Because I could easily, just to say your true self would make perfect sense to me. It doesn't have to be divine. Divine doesn't make it any extra special. But is the word divine used?
Now, let me share with you some observations about studying Patanjali's sutras. After I finally became sufficiently proficient in Sanskrit, I was eager to study the Yoga Sutras. Because the sutras are so terse, they're always studied with the help of Sanskrit commentaries, especially the commentary attributed to a rishi named Vyasa. Not the same Vyasa who compiled the Vedas. The first time I studied the Yoga Sutras, I made a terrible blunder by interpreting them according to my own perspective based on the non-dualistic teachings of Advaita Vedanta. The fact is, Patanjali was not an Advaitin, a non-dualist. So, to understand his sutras properly, I had to study them again, being careful to set aside my bias.
And this is kind of how my mind thinks too. Again, like I've said this a few times before, where I have my own Western mind, my mind prior to watching this videos, my mind after watching this videos, and then also to hopefully have an understanding, hit that person's mind that's talking to me right now. So whatever little I understand from their mind, I try to understand from their perspective as well. So this is where obviously I'm going to interpret it my way, and then hopefully if my brain kicks in, I'll try to interpret it from their perspective, but I have to know something about the person for me to be able to do that. So if I understand that he's coming from a duality perspective, and then I have Advaita Vedanta or non-duality, then I'll have hopefully both perspectives in my mind. But understanding that the person that wrote the whatever the book may be is non-duality or duality, then I have to understand that from my perspective. It's like, okay, this is how it's meant in, perhaps that's meant in duality, and this is probably perhaps what it's meant if it was from non-duality. That's just how my mind works.
Yet, I still couldn't fully understand the text, so I studied it yet again with the help of additional commentaries by great scholars like Vachaspati Mishra and Vijnana Bhikshu. I was deeply humbled by my long and difficult struggle to fully understand the Yoga Sutras. I learned to appreciate even more the amazing scholarship of those commentators. Fortunately, failure to completely understand Patanjali's sutras will not prevent anyone from attaining Samadhi. Like, you can't become a great cook just by studying cookbooks. You can't attain Samadhi by merely studying the sutras. On the other hand, my drawn-out study of the sutras helped me a lot, but not by improving my daily meditation practice. Instead, it helped me become a more skillful teacher of meditation.
That's absolutely right. Obviously, let's go by the analogy of the cookbook. Learning what certain recipes and certain things go together, you can get an idea of how things work, and you can, well, it's kind of, I guess it's not really good, really good, because you can make spin-off versions of the original, which is not something you necessarily want to do in this situation, but you can get a general idea. At least it'll help you a lot. So again, kind of like you notice in the cookbooks, it's a pinch of salt. It's like, maybe this needs salt, and you can add that in there. So you're adding what you've learned from the books to your daily practices. And I have not read the book, so I don't know. But yes, learning from the original books, obviously. And I thought he was going to talk about the Brahma Sutras, because I know those were commentaries of I can't remember I know it's a commentary of a particular book, and then there's also another commentary of the Brahma Sutras, which is, it's really crazy. And now this kind of makes sense, because obviously him having to read, I don't know if he's talked to those people while reading it, or whether those were books of the commentary of the original. But yes, I guess it is. Those books are very complicated and needs to be broken down, and then the broken down version needs to be broken down even more. That's kind of wild.
The Yoga Sutras are highly analytical in nature. Their emphasis is not on practice, but on theory and technical definitions. For example, Patanjali systematically defines 10 different kinds of samadhi, using complicated words like savitarka and nirvichara to describe different kinds of samadhi.
Samadhi, oh, geez. So there's different ways to achieve it. So one with seed and one without seed. Obviously, without knowing what these things mean, I don't know, but the right one seems very simple, but I have a feeling because there's not a lot of steps, it can be quite complicated or difficult. While the left side, right here, while it seems to be a lot, but it's broken down, so it's much easier to understand and do. That way you can achieve your goals.
This terminology is extremely useful for scholars because of its precision. But for practitioners, it can seem bewildering. A detailed study of Patanjali's text is certainly not essential for practitioners. On the other hand, practitioners can indeed benefit tremendously from the many brilliant insights found in the sutras. Perhaps the most significant and beneficial teaching in Patanjali's text is his division of yogic practice into 8 individual steps, 8 angas or limbs. That 8-fold division is so important that Patanjali's system of meditation is commonly known as Ashtanga Yoga, the yoga of Ashta, 8 angas, limbs. In the next part of this series, we'll discuss the practice of those angas. We'll need to use some of Patanjali's Sanskrit terminology, but we'll use the language of modern psychology wherever possible. And of course, we'll draw heavily from my own experiences and insights gained through decades of daily practice.
Is that everything? Yep. Okay, so I highly encourage everyone to, if you want to go ahead and get a head start on watching the rest of them. I believe this is a 4-part series. This is just part 1. I will be going over them, but we will be coming up next time his videos come up. So it'll be 1 video instead of 2. So I looked at this because I was kind of curious. He's going to talk about the psychology of Samadhi. So so far this seems to be just the introduction of how he started and what got him into it, his teachers, or in the teachers that he saw as well, and then him practicing it. And I don't know if he ever said he fully understood. I don't think he did, but he did pick up on certain things of the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So, Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I do wonder how many pages that is. I need to look that up. Just kind of curious. But then again, it's going to be obviously translated, so there's going to be some things lost in translation, which can be pretty bad. Trying to think, like, is there a way to translate something if it can be translated verbatim, as in, for example, word like if for some odd reason in this Yoga Sutra there's a word dog there, and it can be obviously that can be translated to English to mean dog, but if there's another word that cannot be, it's not a direct translation, but to leave it as the original, that way at least some people would understand. It's like, well, this is not translated. What does this word mean? They could at least look up that particular word. But then there's also the structure of the sentence could mean a lot as well. So kind of like what is it, Spanish language and English language tends to, verbs and subject and all that tends to be moved around, and that has a very big meaning on the structure of the sentence, of course. So even that could be pretty bad too. So I guess the only real way to really learn it is, like he said, he actually learned Sanskrit to read the original text, and even then, good lord, you need to read the commentaries of the Yoga Sutras, and then perhaps even the commentaries of the commentaries. My gosh, it takes quite for sure dedication to learn all these stuff. And then, like I said, was it, I can't remember which sutras those read, but they made the Brahma Sutra, and then there's another person who made a comment on the commentary, a comment on the Brahma Sutras. It's like, I remember reacting to that video, it's like, my gosh, is this thing like really complicated? I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it is, but to have a comment on a commentary, that's kind of crazy. But maybe it makes it simple to understand. And I don't know if you should start at the comment of the comment, or can you, do you need the comment of the commentary, then do the comment of the original, and then do the original? Or can the comment of the commentary or just the comment of the original will work? Has anyone read it? Have anyone of y'all read it? Anyways, that's my reaction to the psychology of Samadhi. If you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.